If you keep restarting your goals every few weeks or every few months, then pause for a second, because the problem isn't probably what you think it is. Most people think that it's because they are indisciplined or they are inconsistent that they keep restarting their goals. But I found out that many times the people who restart their goals, they actually care. They care about it. They are thinking about it a lot of the time. Because what's going to make you restart if you don't care about your goal? So that's not the problem. So in this video, I want to show you exactly what the problem is, why you keep restarting your goals, and how you can fix it. So here's the pattern that most people are stuck in. You decide on the goals that you want to work on. You get clear, you're fully excited, you're motivated to get going. You actually begin to execute, maybe for a couple days or for a couple weeks. Then life begins to happen. So for students, school begins to, take control of your time, right? Or for older people, you have work, you have family responsibilities, and then you decide that, I've messed up for a little while, let me just restart again. And that cycle continues to happen over and over again. And the thing is, it's not because you are lazy, but because the goal never had a structure or a system to keep it alive or help it to survive for a long period of time. So here are 3 problems that you're experiencing that make you keep restarting your goals. The first problem is that the goals that you have, they never enter into your week. So most of the goals that we have, they are simply just in our heads. They remain in our heads. Like if someone asks you, what exactly are you working on? You'd be able to actually say it and communicate that to them, but then it's nowhere in your week. So for example, if you woke up on a random Tuesday, you don't know what to work on. You don't know the time that a certain thing has to happen, or the day that it has to happen, or for how long it has to happen for. In fact, this is one problem that stops a lot of people from staying consistent, because there is no time, there's no place, there's no structure for when you would actually get it done, for how long you're going to get it done, and that's the reason why you keep restarting. The second problem is that your goals are too big and they are really too vague, and especially in the new year. We're just fresh into the new year, right? A lot of people have goals like be fit or be more disciplined or improve my academics. But what exactly does that mean? Like if you woke up on a random Thursday and you wanted to actually work on your goals, say for example, take your academics seriously, what exactly are you going to do? You might have to think, and maybe you would even come up with the things that you have to do, but that's the problem. The fact that you have to think before you know the things that you want to do creates decision fatigue. And because you have to spend time doing that, that already creates friction. Because what you want to do, the entire point of systems, is you want to reduce the friction between when you eventually start or have the idea to start working on something and when you eventually get to working on that particular thing. So basically idea and execution, you want to reduce that gap. And that's what decision fatigue does. So because your goals are vague, you don't know what it is that you need to work on. So for example, with my goals, one of the goals that I currently have, is for my business to grow by a certain amount, right? For us to increase our monthly recurring revenue. I know the things that I need to do on a week-to-week basis and on a day-to-day basis. So if, for example, let's say I've been inconsistent from maybe Monday to Wednesday, and on Thursday I actually wanted to lock in, I can simply just go to my Notion page, on my iPad, check out the things that I need to do and just begin working on them. Like I don't have to think, and that's the major problem. Your goals are too vague. So you need to shift from outcomes that you want to achieve to actions that you need to do. And then the final problem is that there is no weekly feedback. You see, when you end the week, most people have feelings that they have, right? In fact, everyone does. You have feelings that you have about how the week went. So if someone asks you how your week was, and they're actually expecting a response from you, you'd be able to tell them. But do you know the problem? The problem is that whatever answer you are giving is an emotional answer. There is no statistic or objective response to the answer that you're giving. So if, for example, Monday to Thursday, let's say Monday to Thursday was good, but Friday and Saturday was really awful. You had a bad day, you slept in, you scrolled for like 5 hours, and all these type of things, right? Chances are high that most people are going to say that their week was bad. But then if you had an objective system that could measure the progress you were making every week, you'd be able to know that, this week was actually good. Or even when you feel like your week was good, but it was actually bad, you'd be able to know. So this is the third and final problem that I see with a lot of people, that there's no feedback that you get at the end of the week for how good or how bad the week was in terms of executing your goals. So now that we understand the major problems that's been hindering you from, being consistent, we can now start talking about the solution. And the problem isn't that you need more motivation. As good as that is, but motivation can't sustain you for a long period of time. So you need to build a system that you can always fall back on. So let's get right to it. Step 1. Stop planning goals and start planning time. I get on calls with the members in my private community, the Distinction Circle, every week. And, we talk about how the week was, and then what we can do better. So, someone says, oh, this is how last week was. Okay, then I'm asking, so what exactly are you going to do better? And they're telling me, okay, this is what I plan to do next week. But then I never leave them like that. My question is always, when do you want to do this? And then some of them hesitate for a little while because they didn't have that planned in their head. They just said they were going to do it. And I know all too well that anytime you say you want to do something without attaching any specific time to it, chances are high you are not going to do that thing, because a lot of things begin to, come into play. If you're at school, that begins. If it's work, that comes. If it's family, all of these distractions or these tasks that blind you from your goals actually begin to come. So, I ask them, okay, when do you want to do this? And then they start to think. And then what happens is they are forced to put a time and a date before we leave that call. And I found out that many times that increases the success rate, by a large margin, as opposed to just saying you want to do a particular thing. So for the things that you want to do, the goals that you're working on, what day and what time do you want to do them? Right? Like, I knew that, so today is currently Monday. It's a Monday where I'm filming this. I knew that I was going to film on Monday. Right? So it's not something that's arbitrary. So after identifying the goals you want to work on, go to your calendar and choose specific time blocks. Now, if you cannot choose a particular day every single week that you're going to do something, then what you can do is you can simply plan week by week. So I can't really decide on the days where I want to film because the studio is obviously not my own. So what I can do is at the start of the week or before the week runs out, the previous week runs out, I can decide the days that I'm going to film next week and just make sure that all of the things are sorted in that regard. So what days do you go to the gym? What days do you go on your walks? What day do you create content? What day do you read your school books? What day and time do you do these things and for how long? And this will propel, your growth and execution by a large margin. Step 2, turn the goal into weekly execution, not annual pressure. You see, at the start of the year, everyone has goals that they have for 2026. I've not had goals for a year, for like 2 years now. And the reason is because when we set annual goals, of course, there's that ginger, there's that drive, like, I can't wait to achieve all the goals that I have for 2026. But the problem is that a year is too long for you to feel the pressure to execute on stuff. Now, I might say you scrap it all together. Maybe not. I personally don't have yearly goals. But then if you wanted to keep them, you could just have like the outcome somewhere and then now condense that into 12-week sprints. So the idea is that I'm planning for 12 weeks, but what's crazy about that is for me, the 12 weeks now becomes my year. So it's different from breaking down your overall goals into quarters. That's not what you're doing. You're taking the 12 weeks as though it were your 2026 or as though it were your 2027, whichever year is you're watching this video. And in doing that, what you do is you apply pressure to yourself because 12 weeks is not so much time for you to procrastinate, and because 12 weeks is going to come like this, right? But then it's not so short a time that you can't see progress on the things that you're working on. So after you've taken that your overall goal and then spread it out into 12 weeks, you then begin to have weekly targets, things that you need to do at the end of every week. And usually I aim for about 80 to 85% of my goals every single week, because if I'm able to do 80 to 85%, then chances are high that I'm going to get closer to achieving my goals. Now, the rule for this is simple. For 12 weeks, you cannot set more than 1 to 3 goals. And the question I get asked many times is, I don't like how my life is. There are a lot of things wrong with it. How do I choose just 1 to 3 goals? That's the problem. You're not going to be able to achieve anything if you have a lot of stuff that you're working on. Again, that's the problem with annual goals. So you want to choose only 1 to 3. And if after the 12 weeks, you want to work on those same things again, that's fine. If after the 12 weeks, you think that, oh, this particular thing, I've achieved it, or it's already ingrained into my lifestyle, like I don't need to do any of these, systems, as it were, to be able to get that done, right? You can then replace those goals with something else. But this is the second step to making sure that you stop restarting. Take those goals, 12 weeks, break them down into weekly targets, measure it every single week, 80 to 85%, and you see that you're moving forward every week, because it turns to like a game. Like, oh, I want to hit 85% to maybe 100% for my goals. I want to hit 85, I want to hit 90. It turns to a game, and then the more you do it, the more you are, eager to actually get to that point where you are ticking off those things, you're to do. So this is just a simple system that keeps me consistent. Step 3, I think this is so important, and it's deciding the minimum that count. So what exactly does this mean? Many times when we're setting goals, we're always thinking of the maximum. We're trying to brute force our way into everything, right? So for someone that is maybe 100 kg, they set a goal that they want to, lose weight. Immediately they have plans to start going to the gym and maybe spending, 2 hours at the gym. Or if they want to go on runs, they want to run for 30 minutes to 1 hour. Like, we want to brute force our way into everything, And I mean, do you if that works? It doesn't, by the way. But what I've realized is if you have a minimum that you have to do every day or every week as it were, that gives you sort of like a fail-safe of what to do if you don't have the energy or the time to be able to get that bigger thing done. Because you don't want to be in the place or in a situation where you are doing the barest minimum every time, because nobody achieved anything worthwhile by doing the barest minimum. So you don't want to be in that state. But having that minimum helps when there isn't time or you don't have as much energy. So for example, I currently run a private community, the Distinction Circle, and one thing that we do is we have habits that we do every single day, 6 habits, right? And all of those 6 habits are at a minimum, they're at the base level. So the first is for every single day, we have to do a 60 minutes without our phone first thing when we wake up. Now, someone can decide to do 3 hours without their phone as soon as they wake up, right? The next is read 10 pages of a book. Right, that's the minimum you have to do every day. Someone can decide they want to read 50. I mean, I read 50 pages every day, then during holidays I read 100. So you can decide to do that, right? But the minimum is 10, even on the days that you're tired, right? Then we have 30 minutes of movement. So regularly, ideally, I go to the gym, spend a minimum of 2 hours, but then on days where I don't have time and all the rest, I just take a 30-minute walk. What exactly is the minimum, right, that you can do? And what this does is it helps you, because what usually happens is if you find out that you wanted to do 1 hour of deep work every day, but you're really tired, you can't, what you are telling yourself is, I can't do 1 hour, so I'm not just going to do it at all, and you're going to push that to tomorrow. But then if you have a minimum, like, my minimum is 20 minutes. So even if I'm not able to do what I actually set, I'm going to do the minimum so that I still stay consistent. Step 4, review weekly, not emotionally. And this is like what I was saying earlier. Don't decide how your week was based off of how you feel in that moment. Let there be an objective definition of what a good week was, or an objective definition of what a bad week was, and then iterate on that. You see, I like to think I'm a productive person, but not in the way that people do. I was telling my community member something yesterday, that if someone lived with me, they'll probably be shocked as to how I live, because, somewhere in their head, they thought, I'm always, making the most of every single hour or every single minute. But I don't know people that live like that. Maybe they are. I personally don't. So I have the ability to adjust ridiculously quickly, and doing that as many times as I need to in a day. So if for some reason I get carried away, the other day I was trying to read a book, right? I was reading The Alchemist, and I did a 60-minute deep work session to be able to get that done, go through the book. But I realized that I was picking up my phone quite often. I was getting distracted, picking up my phone, So that deep work wasn't really deep, it was quite shallow. And then, the time was just going and I wasn't reading. Then after that, I decided that, okay, for the remaining parts of this deep work block, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my phone away, put it on D&D, actually use an app blocker, right? And then just get through that. And that's that simple thing is what I do throughout the day. So what usually happens with people is that maybe from morning till about 2 p.m., 3 p.m., they're not doing anything. Maybe they were scrolling, or they were gisting, or they were playing FIFA, whatever it is. They then tell themselves that, the day has gone, right, subconsciously. So I'm just going to work on the things I wanted to work on today. I'm going to do that tomorrow. But then I can, and you should, be able to adjust at different times during the day. Maybe I'm not productive for the whole day, but by 2 p.m., I realize I actually have a lot of stuff to do, and I need to actually start getting work done. I start to adjust, okay, how much time do I have between now and when I'm going to go to bed? In fact, it's crazy that I can do this adjusting by 7 or 8 p.m., right? So if I've not done anything productive for the whole day, and 7 or 8 p.m., I just ask myself, how many hours do I have between 8 p.m. and maybe when I go to bed by 11, right? And how much work can I get done? Because that's what it is you need to do. And it's much better than starting your goals again and again and again. Just keep iterating. And that's exactly what weekly feedback does. Okay, last week wasn't so good, right? I did only half of the things I wanted to do. How can I make sure that that is better in the coming week? And then you begin to make small corrections towards that. And then over time, you just would naturally get better. The reason why these steps help you stop restarting your goals is When goals live inside a structure, the mistakes that you make along the way, whether it's little inconsistencies here and there, they don't affect your overall momentum because the system and the structure is built for that. It literally absorbs those mistakes. You won't need to start over. All you would need to do is restructure. And that's the difference between constantly restarting and actually moving forward. Now, if you are listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, like, I've heard all the things that you said, Tiga, but I know myself, I will still fall off. That's exactly why I built the Distinction Circle community. It's my private community, and it's a group of young people that are simply working on their goals and trying to become better versions of themselves. It's a structure where you're actually able to set your goals for 12 weeks, break them down into weekly targets, and execute them alongside people working on their goals as well. You're building habits that help improve the quality of your life. There's daily accountability. We meet weekly to discuss how our week went and how we can move that forward, and to just ask me any questions basically. And like I said, you're surrounded by people that are not just planning but actually executing. Right? Just see what some people are saying about it. If that sounds like something you need right now, it's literally just 5,000 naira per month. I mean, if you're not satisfied after the first month, you can just not resubscribe. So are you going to allow 5,000 naira standing between you and being consistent with your goals? So if you're interested in that, simply just click the link in the description and I'll see you inside.